Okay, this is the next lecture from the book The Holy Grail of Wisdom, quotes by me, Pete Rogers, and we're just going in alphabetical order. So now we're on to Aeschylus. Aeschylus lived from 525 to 456 BC. He's one of the all-time great ancient Greek playwrights. And my favorite series of plays by him was called the Oresteia. And this is a real important series of plays in the history of ancient Greece because in some ways it was Christ-like, it was Christian-like. The idea that typically in the ancient world you always have tit-for-tat justice. You know, you hurt me, I hurt you back, and that goes on and on. And the Oresteia led to a move towards handling disputes by the Areopagus, the court, and Athena played a role in this. So basically, in the beginning of the Iliad, in order to get wind for the boats so that they could go attack Troy, Agamemnon, the general leader of the Greeks, sacrificed his daughter Iphigenia, which was a terrible thing to do, obviously, and also was very upsetting to his wife, Clytemnestra, as well, of course. Okay? In revenge, when she got her chance 10 years later, Clytemnestra killed Agamemnon. And then the son, Orestes, avenged his father by killing his mother, Clytemnestra. So kind of a terrible cycle of events. And then the Furies, the Eumenides, went after Orestes, but the case was handled in court. And, you know, they decided to finally have mercy on Orestes. And the point of it was, instead of an endless tit-for-tat, you know, Hatfields and the McCoys feuding, was the idea that a court system could handle a case. And, you know, in Christ's time, he was the big proponent of forgiveness, you know. Give him the benefit of the doubt, give him another chance, turn the other cheek, all that stuff, which is relatively new to the world. You know, like when you read the book Quo Vadis, they said this was something unheard of in the ancient world. Okay, so anyways, bad leads to bad, and Aeschylus, you know, with the trilogy of the Oresteia, he showed a path to resolution and hope that a situation could be decided in a useful way by the court, Areopagus, and the goddess Athena. She was the goddess of Athens, of course. Agamemnon's family line was known as the House of Atreus, and they had all kinds of problems going way back. We're not going to get into all that Greek mythology, but it's very interesting. You'll find in Greek mythology, if you decide to read about it, a lot of fun, very useful from a psychological point as well. Okay. Aeschylus was very religious, very traditional. He had fought in the battles to save ancient Greece, and he was very proud of that. So here's some quotes by Aeschylus, the playwright. Pain is a teacher of things we do not want to know. You shall learn, though late, the lesson of how to be discreet. Yeah, a lot of times it's best to just shut up. Unless you got something to benefit from by what you say, or you can say something funny. A lot of times it's best to shut up or you regret it later. Okay, wisdom comes through suffering, especially depending on the context, you know. You can laugh and have a lot of fun with friends and family, but when you're around people who are uptight, then you really can't talk too much because they get upset about everything. Okay, Aeschylus goes on. Wisdom comes through suffering. Then he says, wiles and deceit are female qualities. It is yours, woman, to be silent and to stay indoors. So he was not very PC. But another point I would make is feminism in the modern world, you know, women think it's empowering them. I would say it's the opposite, just my opinion, because, for example, the woman who I knew, you know, personally, my mother, had the best life and was the happiest woman I ever saw in my life. As soon as she had her kids, she stopped working to take care of the kids. She even wanted more, but she had a couple of C-sections, so they told her she couldn't have any more kids or her uterus would burst. But the reason I say it is, why wouldn't you want to be married? Some guy gives you money and pays your bills. I wish I was married to myself. I mean, it's a great deal. When I was young, almost all the wives, all my friends' moms were married, except for a divorced one, and then she would have to work, so we would go to their houses, okay, because there were no parents around. So what I'm trying to say is this feminism lies to women. It kind of tells women, oh, men are bad, men are controlling. If you don't have a man, you have to work at a job, and at your job, no one cares about you. They'll fire you in 2 seconds. Whereas in a home, the woman is the queen of the whole place. She's the mother of the kids. They all look up to her. She controls the family, usually controls the husband too. I mean, why wouldn't you want that? And actually, I saw some lectures on feminism that it's like tied into Satanism. I mean, it's crazy. You go ahead and study. You see it. It's really bad. And in the end, the women end up worse off. Women nowadays are much, much worse off than they were back in the 1970s. There's no comparison, and society's much worse off. And society used to be peaceful and quiet. Women could walk down the street. In the future, they're heading towards being like these ancient cultures where a woman can't barely walk outside without a male escort, and they're not going to let her do anything else to protect herself. So, anyways, that's a subject for another day. But what I see is women much worse off than they used to be. Even if they don't initially realize it, they realize it when they grow up. It's fun maybe to have a job when you're 25, 30 years of age. But you get older, you look at all these people with families who seem a lot happier. And the women I see now, they have to go back to work within a couple months after having a baby. They wish they could be home with that kid. Anyways, not too many women are willing to support a man. If anybody wants to support me so I can do full-time research and write, I might take you up on that. Okay, I still work. I got to pay my kids' colleges and grad schools and all that stuff. Okay, Aeschylus continues. Men search for God, and in searching find him. To learn is to be young, however old you are in years. The gods help those who help themselves. Out of respect, a man must veil his words when talking with a woman. But with a man, he can frankly say whatever's on his mind. Well, that's actually true. With my guy friends, we can just talk. It doesn't matter where the conversation goes. There's no hidden agenda. There's no mystery or anything. With a woman, it's always like, is there potentially a relationship here? Yes or no? Is this necessary for work? Yes or no? Is there some transaction that needs to be made? So unless you're intimate with a woman, it's kind of hard to talk to them. Maybe a postmenopausal woman where there's no chance whatsoever of a relationship. But it's all this stuff. Talking to a woman's not the same as talking to a guy. Don't get me wrong. I love talking to women. I love joking around with women. But they're not the same. Like I have nurse friends who I'll talk to. And I like talking to a woman because women just see the world differently than a man. They got a lot of good insights, especially on social stuff. Sometimes it'll take me weeks to figure out and understand a social situation. And the woman will understand it immediately. She'll just know it. I think they have a lot more social information in their heads than guys do. Like if you're at work and you work with a guy, I've worked with some guys for 10 years, 15, 20 years. I don't know anything about them and I don't care to. I get along well, we have a laugh when there's something funny, and that's it. Whereas you work with a woman the first day. So, how old are you? Where are you from? Where'd you go to school? Do you have any kids? They ask you all these questions, and I think they have a much better social map of the world than a guy typically does. Okay, Aeschylus continues. It is best for the wise not to seem so wise. Yeah, if people think you're a better athlete than them, they like you. But if they think you're too smart, then they don't like you. They'll hate you. Aeschylus. If one is wise, it is beneficial to seem foolish. Memory is the mother of all learning. For somehow tyranny causes this disease, where a man no longer trusts his friends. Yeah, tyranny leads to a snitch culture, and it leads to, nobody feeling comfortable talking. It's bad. Okay, Aeschylus. Helen brought to Ilium her dowry. Destruction. Yeah, that's the whole story. I talked about that in my pictures. Men in exile feed on dreams of hope. Actually, men in exile write the best books because they've got nothing else to do, like Dante's Inferno, like, the Apostle John wrote the book of Revelation in Patmos, okay? Voltaire wrote English letters when he was exiled to England. Lots of exiles have written their best books. All right, Aesop the Greek now. He lived from 620 BC to 564 BC. And he wrote all the fables. Some of them are pretty good, like the race between the turtle and the rabbit. So even if you don't have the most rapid talent in something, sometimes if you stick with it, you will beat. Slow and steady beats fast and lazy. The story of the lion and the mouse. It's good to have friends even if they seem little, And I sometimes joke with that. One of the surgery services, I do favors for them. And they had done some favors for me many years ago. So I joke with them that they were like a mouse and they pulled the thorn out of my paw, but I'm a lion, which is kind of a joke because there's actually more of them than me, etc. Anyways, what comes around goes around. A lot of these sayings you hear, they come from Aesop's fables. Don't count your chickens before they hatch. Don't kill the golden goose. Be grateful for what you have. Western civilization, thank you very much in Christianity. The farmer and the stork, birds of a feather flock together. There's truth in that. Especially young people, they behave like they're friends. The fox and the grapes, sour grapes. I'm sure those grapes are sour, All this classic stuff, a lot of it comes from Aesop's fable. Sometimes you can't talk a bully out of their bad behavior. one of the most valuable things you could ever read about history is to read the story of Athens and Milos. So Athens was the great civilized city of the ancient Greeks, but even Athens was kind of brutal by our modern standards. The Athenians had slaves, and look what they did to Milos. Milos is a valuable story to read because I think if you want to know anything about history, that's like one of those things you must read, the story of Athens and Milos, Melos. Okay, the line in love, weakness is not attractive. Yeah, you don't attract a woman by being a wimp and telling her how much you love her. You attract her by being strong and looking good, and then she's attracted to you. Young guys need to know that. Let's see. The lion and three bulls, together they are strong. Oh, I missed. Here's the story that goes with that. A farmer had quarrelsome sons, and he told them to meet together in the yard. He took a bunch of sticks and bundled them together. Then he asked each son to try to break the bundle. None of the boys could break it. Then he unbundled the sticks and asked them to break the sticks one at a time. This they did easily. The father said, "See how strong you are when you help each other and stick together, and how weak you are when you don't get along." And that later became the famous strategy of the Roman Empire to take the different city-states they wanted to conquer and get them to sort of not get along with each other, fight with each other, and badmouth each other. And then it would easily just pick them off. Okay, here's a quote from the Bible. This is from Matthew chapter 12, verses 25 to 27. It says, "If a kingdom is divided against itself, it cannot stand. If a house is divided against itself, it cannot stand. No one can enter a strong man's house to steal his possessions unless he first ties up the strong man. Then he can plunder his house." So let me ask a question. In order to plunder the United States, who is the strong man that's being tied up? Interesting question, huh? Okay, Aesop continues. "The tyrant will always find a pretext for his tyranny." Yeah, so that's one thing I've seen too, is if a country wants to do something, they always declare their opponent a homicidal maniac, and then they always say it's in self-defense, and then they go and do whatever they wanted to do. Okay, Aesop, "Quarrels of friends are the opportunities of foes. There once were three bulls that fed in a field together in peace and safety. A lion had long watched them in hopes of making them prey, but he found his chance of little likelihood because they all stuck together. He therefore began secretly to spread evil and slander about them, and to foment jealousy and distrust between them. Soon the bulls began to avoid one another, and each took to feeding alone. This gave the lion all the opportunity he needed and was waiting for. He fell on them singly and made easy prey of them all." Yep. Sound familiar, Christian ignoramuses who could help each other and save each other, but you're too clueless to get that? Okay. No act of kindness is ever wasted. The famous story of the boy who cried wolf. Any excuse will serve a tyrant. Aesop. Yep, you will see. They just always make up stuff when they want to do something. Aesop. "Union gives strength. United we stand, divided we fall." Okay, and I got a couple quotes here more too. We'll go into the aging quotes as well. Herbert Agger, just one quote from him. He lived from 1897 to 1980. He said, "The truth which makes men free is most often the truth that they don't want to hear." Yeah, like become a low-fat vegan. Okay, just a couple quotes on age, and then we'll be done with this series of quotes. The first one is from Pearl Buck. She's the writer. I think she wrote The Good Earth. Her quote is, "To find joy in work is to discover the fountain of youth." Yeah, you got to work anyways. Hopefully, if you're lucky enough, you'll like it. Okay, Thomas Shaw's, "The greatest analgesic soporific, and to some extent even antibiotic, is, in short, the closest thing to a genuine panacea, known to medical science as work." Okay, so that's a long-winded way of saying basically the brain's either in default mode network, which travels back and forth between past and future, which is in the center of the brain, or it's in what is called the task-based network along the outer convexities of the brain, where its activity is mostly, if you put them in a functional MRI scanner, the activity is mostly along the cerebral convexities. And the point is, the brain can only focus consciously on one thing at a time. So if they're just left by themselves and they're perseverating with nothing to do, they sit there and they can be unhappy about some past or future event, and they'll obsess about it. But you get them busy working, then they get pulled into the future and they have to concentrate on that. And they're happy because they're not thinking about the stuff that was bothering them. So that's a good way to become happier. Food also has a big effect on mood. We talk about that in separate lectures. Here's a nice quote by Jules Renard, the French guy. I like this one. He says, "Life is not all that we want it to be, but it is all that we have." Okay, Logan Pearsall Smith says, "Youth is a time for adventures of the body, but age for the triumphs of the mind." Yep, when you're young, you got the real high testosterone, physical strength, and a lot of time on your hands. It's time to do your athletic feats. When you're old, though, and it was Arthur Schopenhauer who noticed this and others, judgment comes late. You'll have a lot of experience, a lot of perception, and you can start to become pretty wise. Sir William Osler, "A man is as old as his arteries." Basically, if you keep your arteries open, you can age really well. And if you don't, you're screwed. I see that in a lot of Polish people. They keep on eating meat and oils, and a lot of Polish people kind of have the attitude that, look, the Russians starved them for 70 years, made them eat turnips, so now they got a steak, and damn it, they're going to eat it. But they plug up their arteries, and they often get fat and have a lot of problems after about the age of 40, 45 or so. Arthur Schopenhauer, "The first 40 years of life give us the text. The next 30 supply the commentary. The closing years of life are like a masquerade party where our true faces are shown." Okay, Aristotle, "Education is the best provision for old age." Okay, that concludes this lecture. Hope that was interesting.